Here she is. I'm going to wait until she's connected, which is always a good idea with a feature because it's hard to read when you're not connected. Hi, Lori, are you connected yet? Ah, there you are. We were concerned that you weren't going to make it. Yeah, usually I like people to show up about 15 minutes early, but if I didn't say so, then that's an explanation why you weren't here. But we'll start with you. I've already started the recording. Lori Howe is the co-creator of the new poetic form, the Cadrelore. She is also the author of Cloud's Shade, Poems of the High Plains, published by Castrugi Press in 2015, and Voices at Twilight, also by that press in 2016. Her poetry has appeared or is forthcoming in such journals as The Meadows, Clara Story, Red Hook, Verse Virtual, McQueen's Quinterly, Synchronicity, the Tampa Review, and Pilgrimage. She's a poetry editor with Castrugi Press, as well as a phenomenologist whose peer-reviewed research appears in the Journal of Poetry Therapy, Qualitative Inquiry, and others. She holds a PhD in literacy education and an MFA in creative writing poetry from the University of Wyoming, where she's a visiting assistant professor in the Honors College. She's the editor-in-chief of Gleam, Journal of the Cadrelore, and of Clara Story, Poems of the Mountain West. She's currently at work on a Cadrelore collection, Ocean, Ocean. Welcome today, Lori.
Many thanks. I'm very pleased to be here. Sorry if I alarmed anyone I thought I was just showing up right on time, so I will remember that next time. So as Robbie mentioned, I am very pleased to be a part of the growing phenomenon of the Cadrelore, the new poetic form, and I'm shortly taking off on a research and writing trip to the Pacific Northwest to work on my new manuscript, Ocean, Ocean. So in the meantime, I think I will read one of my favorite Cadrelore that I've written so far. It's called Disarticulation, and it's my number 9 in my series. And then because Cadrelore, especially when I write them, are really big, fat poems that take a while to get through, I'll just read, after that, I'll read a very short poem that I wrote recently that is not a Cadrelore, so I don't run over time. Okay. It's 10 minutes, right, Robbie? Yes? Okay. Cadrelore number 9, Disarticulation. 1. The Lost City. In this photo of Friday Harbor, see here, the place with the red umbrellas, deck rails stained dark by storm. Here is the place for halibut, for fries cut today, a proper shoestring, skins on, double fried in fresh oil, a bang of salt and rosemary. Sit at the rail, a beer, why not? And burn your mouth on their creamy insides, the silken fish, salted fries, a fireworks of vinegar. From here, look out at the marina, boats glowing meringue inaudible, a forest of masts clacking with the tide. In 1,000 years, archaeologists will unearth its champagne bottles and dressmakers' dummies, all the bracelets and throne rings, the coins of the world. They will see a new language in the sunken piles, as though a whole city fell into the sea. It wouldn't occur to them, really, that when gold is ground fine, it becomes invisible. Everything we drop and forget is still there, waiting to tell. 2. Quantum indeterminacy. Out at the far end of the string of zeros, my student tells me, you'll open the dryer to find the clothes already folded. A pencil dropped becomes the dusk-lit notes of the violin. When you reach for a pear, your fingers will purl into quanta and pass right through it, into the cedar caress of electrons. Every breath you draw is luminous. What would you give to know? Would you belovedly untouch the tender walls of your one life, forget the taste of a peach, unslick your fingers, your chin of its ripe honey, loose the spice market of your own sweet self to be both whale and krill, every drop of the sea? What would you offer up for those tourmaline gills? 3. Missives from the periodic table. What if I told you that the elements are sensate, that they long for us to unedge the table? Let strontium stretch and copernicium contemplate the sun. Allow ytterbium to react with water, to oxidize into lustrous wings, and bismuth to cool and crystallize, to dress itself in cobalt and levitate. Save a moment of thanks for the 6 bodhisattva, the angels of oxygen and carbon, calcium and nitrogen. Expose the glowing phone booth of phosphorus to light. Allow it to sublime. Pray for hydrogen as you would pray for yourself. It is your body incarnate. In all chemiluminescence, an excited state is created via a chemical reaction. It translates as a staining of fluorophore. Small wonder then, with the angels seething in our atoms, the way I blossom and stain purple everywhere you touch. 4. From my kitchen window. He is 8 and small for his age, the last child of the mustard-colored house, of the mother who shouts, of the Trump signs fading malignant in the careful lawn. He rides the big wheel left over, too small for him, legs an angry scissoring against enforced silence. At my garden, he breaks to gaze into my roses, into their heavy, wet hearts. Swift, without looking, he strips one from the greening, palms its round head, a red planet. Carefully, he peels it open, dissecting. Petals fall like plucked wings. Hands stained with it, he rides away, the playing card tick, tick, ticks against his wheel. My tide washes out to him, his mute rage, my own pebbled skin. I walk down to where the rose stirs, inarticulate in the breeze. So filled with its own beginnings, it does not know it is already dead. I sweep the petals into my hand, every garnet coin. 5. Vatnajökull Glacier, Icelandic South Coast. Walk inside. Send your heat out beneath the frozen sea, tendrils of salt water falling around you like pealing bells. Look up into waves frozen in nests. Unfurl inside this Chesapeake blue dragon made of glass, ancient, viridescent, glacial. Can you be small and quiet enough to press yourself against the under and into? Humans and lobsters share an ancestor. In this arching below the Icelandic sea, feel your way back to the split, unbody into herbalitarian. Who are you without your carapace? I know you want to burn your face against the oculus, see into heaven. Press yourself against it. Disarticulate. You were born of heat. There is only the tiny fragrant skin we leave behind, the miraculous whale song of it, the abalone shell of our short and glorious lives, holy and imperfect, pearled blue by desire, the salty and the sweet. Thank you. Robbie, do I have another minute or did I use it?
Another minute.
Okay, it's a very short. It's a very short.
Till about, I'll give you till about 11:15.
Okay, just looking for it. Okay. I wrote this little poem after Mary Oliver's poem, Wild Geese. You do not have to be every woman who has ever lived. You do not have to be a swan in tow, a silent movie ballerina cloaked in bioscopic grace, toes bleeding invisibly into the cups of your shoes. You do not have to be a siren in blue satin, every golden strand in place. You do not have to be as luminous as a watch dial in the quiet dark of these strange days. You must only be able to breathe in the rain, to let your face find what it loves, to open your hands to this spring's snow, to welcome it with heat and light. You do not have to freeze, green-veined as marble for lack of touch. 2,000 miles away, pelicans open their prehistoric mouths above a turquoise sea, thinking only to solve the equations of hunger and fish, of what it means to be whole. Whoever you are, you'll be someone else tomorrow. Today, you are nestled down in the extraordinary forest of your own body, a creature warm and quiet. You are already home.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me.
It was our pleasure. Our next feature is Sean Kelbley. He was first introduced to the Verse Virtual community by Betsy Mars, one of many new friends that he's made here. He works as an elementary school counselor in Appalachian, southeastern Ohio, and lives with his husband on a former state experimental farm in a house they built themselves. Sean began submitting poems for publication in 2017. Since then, his work has appeared in such journals as Crab Creek Review, One, The Rise Up Review, and Pine Mountain Sand and Gravel. He's been recognized in contests at Midwest Review, Sheila Naig Online, Still, The Journal, Up North Lit, and the Yuki Taiki Haiku Society. And he's been nominated for Best of the Net, Best New Poets, and the Pushcart Prize. Man works fast. His work is forthcoming this spring and summer in Rattle and in Sugar House Review. Thanks, Sean, for being here.
Hi, everyone. I'm very honored to be here, and I'm so grateful to Verse Virtual and to be reading with Marie and Carrie. Some of you don't know, but Carrie and I are like country neighbors. We are in the same zip code. And the village is about 824 people. I think that's the exact figure in the last census. So two of us here from that village, we're pretty excited about that. I'm going to do 4 poems. They're all fairly short. I'm going to try not to talk much in between them. The first one is a true story, And I had a poem called True Story that some of you may have seen on Verse Virtual a few months ago. This is another one. The house we were building, while we were in the middle of building it, we found out a pipeline was going to go through a property. So this is a little bit of a rant about a kind of a violating situation. Pipeline surveyors. I resent the men who've come to mark our land. On breaks, they sit inside their giant pickup trucks, engines running so their leather seats stay hot. Wolf down their subway double meats like puppies vying to grow biggest fastest. Not yet Foley men, mid-20s, college logos on their too clean baseball caps, Gore-Tex shells unripped. Skin paler on the narrow bands where rings should be. Oklahoma, Mississippi, Louisiana, not one single local license plate. And someone here could use the work. I dislike their easiness, their casual bro nods when we pass each other on the road. The way they play the open courts at City Rec, not bad enough to pity, not good enough to outright hate. What kind of guys pound ribbon steaks, paint arrows red and blue across a property to show the butchers where to cut, then just move on? I've watched them take the measure of our waitresses at Applebee's. It's unforgivable how much they love their jobs. I'm gonna do a little bit of a commercial. This is an anthology that Haley Mitchell-Hagen had a call for last fall. I think I wrote only about 3 poems that you could call COVID poems because it was just an awful year and that was the last thing I wanted to write about. But because it was Haley and because a lot of Verse Virtual people are kind of in that same circle, I made myself write one and she took it. I'll show you the picture because it's an ekphrastic. Ooh, can you see it? Sort of. It was like a pirate ship, a cigarette, these 4 little tacks doing kind of a jubilant dance. And these are all art installations by Matthew Wolfe, who made a different installation every day for the first 100 days of the pandemic. And we all wrote in response to those. My poem is called Ill Wind. West Virginia, like a whale road, everything floats through. Long haul truckers gam at travel plazas. Spring breakers driving home from Myrtle Beach piss overboard. Uncle Roger and our Port St. Lucie cousins text from Flat Top Toll Booth, be there soon, and we're not worried. It's mostly blowing smoke, this COVID crap. We're bad at recognizing pirates. Ask the plundered mountains or the choked out creeks. If you can find John Henry, ask. 3 months from now, some family know-it-all will say, of course it flew on casual coughs, uncovered sneezes. Don't you recall that Saturday? How Jolly Roger and the kids sailed up your driveway in their minivan, shared bottles of Bahamas rum, sang songs about a dead man's chest. We danced like hazards, pinned all angles to the kitchen floor. Next morning, everyone remembered Jesus, packed the church like barrels full of hardtack. Thank you. I'm going to shift gears. I am proudly born and grown Appalachian, but I don't have the long heritage that many people here do. One branch of our family is German ethnically and ended up in the Danube Valley in what is now Serbia and Hungary. And I wrote a poem a couple years back that's been on Verse Virtual called Explanation and is also in Betsy's anthology Unsheathed. And I'm going back to a character that was in that poem. The Reagan years. At her farm outside Toledo, I take a Polaroid of Oma in the sweatshirt we brought back from Myrtle Beach. I drop it in her lap with photos of my parents laughing, me pretending to fight off a shark. Oma glances down at us, half vanished in the surf, says, in Bachka, no one own a camera. and just as well, another thing to lose. She shifts her eyes across the creek onto the flatness of her land. She doesn't like the way her neighbors plant to water's edge. She misses reeds, the hollow sound of brushstroke dance, the easy feel of bending them to any purpose. Soybeans no good, she shouts. How do someone hide when Russians come? Corn husk, only can you make a doll. With reed, long reed, you make a breathing. All right, I'm gonna finish up. I traveled a little bit with you. This is my third of the 3 COVID poems, and we're not hearing the one that I put away for another time. This is called Travel. It would do us good to stand again in lavender, to walk through vineyards full of ripening grapes. Remember how we used to go? There was an old stone church on Leelanau Peninsula. A black snake melded to its western wall. And on Lake Michigan, light butterflied. Too many sparkles lunging in and out of waves to count. That stroke, so hard to learn, but then the muscle memory's forever. This rusty year of staying put, these winter weeks of puttied skies remind me how we never needed lists of things to see or what to pack, of how a body won't forget the way to cling to warmth and light keeps swimming. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Our last feature today is Kari Gunther-Seymour. And I'm so pleased to have her as a feature because I first heard her work when she was on the open mic at First Virtual. And it struck me so much that I wanted to read her chapbook and write about it. So I'm very glad to have her here at last and glad that her work is doing so well. All right, take over then for me, Carrie.
Well, I might tell you a little bit about myself if you're not going to read the bio. Are you not reading my bio, Robbie?
Yeah, there you go. I'm spacing out already.
Hint, hint, read the bio.
Kari Gunther-Seymour's poetry collections include A Place So Deep Inside America, It Can't Be Seen, winner of the 2020 Ohio Poet of the Year Award, and serving runner-up Yellow Chair Review Chapbook Contest. Her work was selected by former U.S. Poet Laureate Natasha Trethewey. I never know how to pronounce her name. To be included in the PBS. Yeah, I love her work, but I can't say her name. In the PBS American Portrait Crowdsourced Poem Remix for My People. Her poems appear in numerous journals and publications, including Verse Daily, Rattle, and the New York Times. Gunther-Seymour teaches virtual monthly generative writing workshops and hosts a popular seasonal performance series, Spoken and Heard. She's the Poet Laureate of Ohio. Another person who doesn't fool around with her time.
Our course librarians. I mean no disrespect when I say, during the Great Depression, Eastern Kentucky was a sundered area. Surrounded by mountains and waterways, no easy access in or out, nor any proper education until the WPA employed our grandmothers to pack saddle literacy to the underserved. This would be the only good thing Cole would do for Kentucky. Cole and the Presbyterians, donating books and endowment, $28 a month to any woman with a horse or mule and the spunk to stand up for progress, brave the weather, backwaters and hollers, to deliver emancipation by means of bound dissertation. You need to understand this was Appalachia just before the war to end all wars. Only women of disrepute were considered working women by the church. Christian women labored in the kitchen and fields, birthed, prayed, died in them. Albeit many Christian women were taught to read, if for no other reason than the Lord's word could be used to hold her back. But this was the new deal and all bets were off. Imagine my grandmother, top of her head barely level with the saddle's front rigging D, flaming red hair, a brand of sass all her own. Packing up at the Pine Mountain Settlement School, Harlan County, creek beds as roads, on foot, single file across crag and cliff top, sleeping in barns or lean-tos against the cold. Deliberate as any lineman or mail carrier, every treatise she carried a nugget of gold inside her saddlebags. Thank you, everyone. I'm too am very honored to be here today and to be with Sean and Lori. What a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. And I want to thank Robbie for inviting me today. As she mentioned, I am reading today from my full collection, which is A Place So Deep Inside America It Can't Be Seen. And then if I have time, I'm going to do a little one from my chapbook, Serving. And I'll put that information in the chat in case anybody would be interested in supporting my small presses. By now you realize I talk a little different than most of you, and that's because I am a 9th generation Appalachian, and my family has actually lived in southeastern Ohio for 3 of those generations. But early in the 1700s, my ancestors, John Gunter III and his wife Joanna, boarded a ship to the Americas, and they settled in Henrico County, Virginia, which there was a lot of jobs in coal and iron at that time. And I'm not sure if they were coal miners, but I do know that by a few generations later, they were farming. My descendants went on to settle in North Carolina and then South Carolina and then Tennessee. And finally, my people came to Ohio during World War II, as it ended up both of my grandmothers and all of the aunts moved north to find work in the factories in Warren, Ohio. So my poems today, starting out anyway, are dedicated to strong women. And this next one is called Perfect Pitch. I rode middle school bound in the back seat of my aunt's station wagon, listening to her and Mama sing Jolene, trading verses, harmonizing on the chorus. I'm begging of you, please don't take my man. A few years later, it was 925. They were fired up, and it was Dolly's doing. This was rural Ohio, the bottom lip of northern Appalachia, right shy of Perry Como country. The women in my family worked the TS trim factory, spitting out Honda car parts. Started out on the assembly line, worked their way up to paint, then detailing, then welding. The physical labor made their bodies strong, their future bright, and like Dolly, they weren't taking any shit. They learned early on about strikes and picket lines, how important it was to organize and vote. Brave women in the workforce, determined to see their daughters inside college classrooms, the hell out of factory row. I didn't know then I was being raised by a feminist, taking back her power. Like Dolly, my mama would never use that word, no matter how much she embodied it. She was proud to hang up her welder's helmet end of shift, pick up her paycheck, and sing in the front seat of a station wagon with women she loved. So I have to wonder how many of you know about our granny women. Even today, our granny women are the go-to experts on medicinal plants and tinctures and poultices. And there's actually good science behind their medical practices. And these insights are handed down generation to generation, kind of like apprentice fashion. though not just everybody can be a granny woman. It's considered a gift of knowledge and intuition, sort of an extrasensory perception that some are born with. Now, outliers, some of you today maybe, find our granny women mysterious and magical. And as you can imagine, I've written quite a few granny poems and I love to share them. And this is one of them. Last night, the chime of tree frogs. Granny woman dances under breeze, shivering branches, her skirts a waltz of wings, mouthful of stories. She has emptied her house of men. Out the side of her eye, the soft blur of rabbit and watchful dusk, air ripe with herbs and tinctures, the echo of gasping roots. She is the nighthawk, sprung from chalky shell, issuing her raspy bew for all the names she gives the night. Surviving passages so narrow, they felt like birth canals. Every dawn she can remember crushed between her teeth. She will cradle you, deliver you from one mud to the next. Anointer, holder of upended petals and misplaced halos. I saw her in the dark morning, glimmer and dust. Thank you so much. I'm going to do this one from my chapbook surveying. I'm the mother of a Middle East veteran, and whenever I read, I send out a poem to those who serve, have served, and to their families, and most especially to the mamas. And this is called A Middle East Vet's Mom Attends the Parade, Athens County, Ohio. I had all but decided to skip the Veterans Day parade this year. That endless train of local beauty queens atop hay wagons, tone-deaf high school bands, poodles dressed in khaki. The VFW Harley Club rumbles the pavement, American flag t-shirts under leather-fringed vests. Our ears rang long after they vroom, vroom past. The parade marshals, 2 World War II vets, shiver in the back seat of a flag-draped convertible. Color Guard and ROTC march by in formation, flags waving. Children squeal delight at the vintage fire truck, its long-winded siren, old-time penny candies thrown by rubber-clad firemen. The mascot Dalmatian, also in rubber, trots alongside. At the Civil War monument, a peach-faced young woman belts out the anthem. I look around. Oh, say, I do see that most don't bother to put hand to heart. The mayor speaks highly of those who have served, shares the names of several veterans he has known personally, makes note of the 2 seated next to him who he just met. The speech dwells on American pride, predicts a glorious future, scarcely touching on toll or sacrifice. American Legion Post 18, clad in green and navy, present arms and the 21 gun salute, 7 times 3, click, click, fire. A short blonde veteran, Iraq, we are told, lifts her bugle. The World War II vets wobble to their feet, salute. Bum, bum, bum. Her eyes closed, profile tilted skyward. Bum, bum, bum. Each note perfectly pitched, sharp, held an extra second, longing, breathy, like boys who fall in battle. I am undone. Stumbling across the grass, I barely noticed neighbors. A few embraced me, thanked me for your service. Thank me, Jesus Christ. Out of nowhere, some Barbie lookalike says, y'all come to brunch. And I'm ashamed of my reaction, which I barely managed to conceal. Stepping back, I excuse myself. Wonder how this will ever be an end to it. Admitting this only to myself and now to you. Lord have mercy. I wanted to punch Barbie in the face. I know I'm running just a bit over time, but I wanted to read this last one because a friend of mine recently reminded me that I am a woman of privilege, being a white woman, raised a Protestant in this country. And she told me it's my duty to speak out, to be an activist for change. And I agree with her, and I simply must. And in that spirit, I offer this last poem. And I will give you a trigger warning. I wrote this the day after George Floyd was murdered. And it's called Today I'm Lying in the Fetal Position. I want to scribble lines about the bluebird duo pecking at my morning window, a flap like wrung out hummingbirds chittering as if the place were on fire. Google tells me bluebirds are at great risk of predation, highly vulnerable, even inside their nesting box, which must be fortified just so. I want to wax on about how the male's blue-black wings and blood orange throat make him stand out markedly against the affluent green of spring, compared to the pallidness of his missus and myself. I don't want to write about George Floyd, black and blue, or the shadow that blocked the sky at his throat for 8 minutes, a pasty pale punk with a badge kneeling him to death while our man begs, please, officer, I can't breathe. Or to spot the release of his final fluids crawling the cold concrete in the shape of River Jordan, while bystanders record videos and beg, please, bro, you're killing him. So I set out to put the bluebird box to rights. But a house sparrow attacks me, and I realize in this terrible world, I cannot save even one desperate bluebird, fluttering before infinity, begging me. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, all of you, for your powerful readings. That was quite a poem to end with. We'll move on to the open mic. And since only 3 people signed up for the open mic today, and actually 4, and one of them was not a member of Verse Virtual, I invite not only Joan Liotta and Don Krieger, who doesn't seem to be here, who signed up to read, but the rest of you who did not sign up, I invite you to read one poem if you're a member.
I can read one.
Okay, you weren't on the list, so you can read.
No.
Okay, okay, Jeff. But we're going to start with Joan, since she is signed up. Joan Liotta.
Here we go.
I just want to say one thing. Those poems were all wonderful. Thank you so much for that, Lori and Sean and Carrie. And those were really wonderful, wonderful poems. I'm in the unenviable position of following you. So let me just say one thing in the transition. I went to school in Athens. That's where I went to college, Ohio University. I started out in journalism, thought it wasn't relevant enough, so transferred the poor guy who was my advisor, who is now, his name's on the journalism school, and he was the father of one of my good friends. He said, "Don't do that, Joan." And I said, "Yes, I am. I'm majoring in political science." How's that for irrelevant? No, totally nonsensical. Went on to get a degree in economics somewhere else. So a master's in economics. So with that background, I was going to read something from, I thought we were reading 2 poems, Robbie.
Yeah, 2 poems because you're signed up, but the
Oh,
other
okay,
people
all
aren't
right.
signed up. Since there
I-
are more of them, I'm saying they can read 1 poem.
Gotcha. I just wanted to make sure. I mean,
Yeah.
I can just read one if there's not time. So I want to read one that was in Verse Virtual. I believe it was in March, or no, it wasn't in March. Anyway, it was last year. And so many things were going on in the pandemic that I, became so aware of things in my yard, like many other people. And then I want to read something that's new, if that's okay, that I haven't, had before. But is that all right with everybody? Oh, okay. You
The
don't
only
mind being
problem with it is
experimental.
that it might be counted as published by some journals, so that's up to you.
Oh, because you're recording?
Yeah.
Well, we'll think about it. Okay, maybe I'll switch out to the March one. But anyway, I'll start with this one. False grapes. When we first drove up this winding drive of our new home and spotted dangling bunches of purple along the fence, I entertained visions of stomping grapes, of bottling the rich red juice after it fermented, and drinking it in crystal glasses on the patio overlooking that same pasture fence line. I soon realized not even a small harvest would be won from this snaking line of purple. It was wisteria. Wisteria dangling indolently from the fence along the drive and property lines. Over the years, I've come to value their beauty, that they bloom requiring no effort on my part. Their show of color mine to enjoy as I sit on my patio sipping grocery store wine. I've got some little thing from Apple here. There we go. All right, I will stick with them with something else. I'll read this one, which I dedicated to my son. Our daughter went to a school that looked a lot like Ohio U. so surprised, but it was in Virginia, James Madison. It was even by a railroad. Our son chose Virginia Tech, and is high up in the mountains. These are also sort of mountain Appalachian schools, but not the same way as Southeastern Ohio. They thought they were, but they didn't know. So this one is called The Season of the Big Dog Wind, March. Joe loved Virginia Tech very much. He did die at Virginia Tech, not in the shooting, but 2 years earlier, he was hit by a car. But he kept talking about the wind, the horrible wind that would blow in the mountains. And so I wrote this poem for him. Joe called it the big dog wind, the one that chases you down as you walk along, jumping on you when you least expect it. Joe called it the big dog wind, that sudden blast of air from the sky, strong enough to push you down on the sidewalk, forcing the breath out of you, panting over you with breath of the mountains. He's strong beyond what he realizes, his howl making it hard to walk, hard even to stand up straight. Joe called it a big dog wind. Today, recalling that, when I felt wind bearing down on me, I cried out, "Heel, wind, heel!" Along the path as I walked by, bare birch branches rattled together in a laughing response to my exhortation of the wind. Wind himself seemed to take no heed of me, although I thought I heard a laugh was in the howl as he continued on his way. I'll just stick with those two. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Well, since Dawn doesn't seem to be here, who would like to go next to read one poem since you weren't on the list? And this is open to members of Verse Virtual Community.
I can go if you want.
Okay, Jeff.
All right, this is a new poem. It's called A Rumor. Did you hear? A COVID victim came back to life in a Denver mortuary and bit several attendants. A joke posted on social media, but 70 million Americans panicked, fortified their homes, hoarded hazmat suits and assault rifles, and reported their neighbors who, grilling peculiar cuts of meat over cold coals, cried as they ate. Don't panic, fellow citizens, proud boys and proud girls. Ever hear of Bogorod syndrome? A condition that causes you to cry while you're eating, a reflex of regenerating autonomic fibers, not zombie guilt over eating the relatives. Anyway, that's science. You do you, I'll do me. To quote the lawyer who defended her wild allegations of election fraud, no reasonable person would swallow such outlandish claims.
Thanks, Jeff. Anybody else like to read a poem today?
I will.
Okay, hi.
Well, hello. Do I just go ahead and go?
Yeah, go for it, Scott.
Okay, hold on. My phone is falling. Of course, it's falling as soon as I'm reading. Okay. I just had a knee replacement surgery, which was super fun. So this is about that. Post-op day 1, total knee arthroplasty. My daughter says there isn't a very good name for pain. I agree. There are so many ways to hurt, and words don't help. When I shuffle into the restroom with my walker, the red second hand of the clock has detached and fallen below the 6. Reclining like a drowned lifeguard who settles on the sea floor, water sleeping without bones. The seconds don't matter between ache and scar. Nobody can schedule healing or faith or forgiveness. And my Savior lies motionless at the bottom of time. That's it.
Thank you, Scott. Anybody else care to read a poem? Penelope?
Yeah, I will. I really,
We've lost your sound, Penelope.
oh no. You can't hear me? Seriously?
You're in and out.
Oh, okay. Well, I will do my best.
Okay.
I was saying that I really enjoyed today's reading very much, everybody. This poem is in this month's Verse Virtual. It's a poem from my friend Mary Rennie, who died a few years ago at age 98, and is called Flickers. A century-old brain rests inside the smoked glass shade of the wrought iron lamp, which once belonged to Mary. I eat my dinner at her dining table. I sit on the Queen Anne chairs she expensively upholstered, which I bought for little at her daughter's yard sale. I put my feet up on her coffee table, set a mug on her drop leaf. Out on the balcony, a fuchsia droops on gold tile above metal legs, supporting racks that once held bottles in her den. Evenings at my desk, I read and write by the light of her smoked shade. Sip tea while she flickers in the lamp's dark base. Suggests I have a glass of something stronger.
Thank you. Who's next? How about you, Mary? You got a poem for us? Guess not. If nobody else is going to read, I'll read one.
Robbie, I'll read one if you want.
Okay. We got to see you though. Can you sit up on something or move your
Yeah,
camera?
I'm having a bad day. That's why I was like, here, just let me turn my video on. Is it on? There it
It's
is.
on. You're good.
Not a good day, guys. Not a
Sorry.
good day.
Well, I hope it gets better.
You don't have to appear if you don't want to.
Okay. Here we go. This is called Invitation. Come to me when you have wrestled with the angel no one else can see. When nightmare stalks you in the daylit street and you go dark as a bulb one turn too loose. Come to me when the road twists into knots you can't resolve and the faces you see stare coldly out of stiffened masks with painted smiles and sharp teeth flashing as they pass. Come to me when you have forgotten how to read, when all you see are turned backs and raised eyebrows, when the signs don't make sense and you've gone outside the lines of every map you had. Come to me when you speak words of fire that burn your tongue and turn to ashes on the air. Come to me when you wear Death's kiss like a badge on your body and hear his voice inside you, intimate and constant as your own heartbeat. Come to me when nothing's left to look at all familiar, and I will meet you there.
Thank you, Mary. That was powerful.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me read.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
I'll read one, Robbie.
Okay, Betsy.
I've got a short one. It was recently published in One Art, and I was introduced to the journal by Donna and highly recommend it. Really wonderful publisher. I wanted to also add that I love all the open mic readers and obviously all the features, and Carrie had me in tears for sure at the end. Just love hearing Lori and Sean. So this one is called Bearing Water, and I'm a little croaky as usual. To wash dust from jagged leaves, I turn the hose on the hibiscus. Shriveled flowers fall to dirt. Water drips into soil. Roots reach for a sip. When suddenly a moth, its rusty wings heavy with moisture, fanning the same water into steam, flutters to the earth. Damned while new buds open. Some feel my intentions as mercy, others nearly drown. Thank you. Thank you.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Betsy. Anyone else?
Well, Betsy made me do it. I'll go ahead and read one.
Okay.
All righty. This is actually in the latest verse virtual. Even though we're turning a corner on COVID, it shows we got something to go, a ways to go in terms of both getting over the illness society-wise and also the trauma we sustained going ahead and going through this year, even though thank God we did get through it. Title is, We Are Always a Little Different with Each Change. And we got that picture on so you can see me. Sorry, I forgot I was a blank screen. We are always a little different with each change. Pringles, Gatorade. First time eating outside in a year. Done, I put on my mask, and a thank you trumpeted, brassy and sharp enough to have sliced my throat. The administrator advised me to keeping my distance, and it dawned on me that distance was being a masked statue, neither breathing nor batting an eye, like when seed for finches lures a black cat over to cruise. Nature's got to eat, and April's crueler this year. Climate broiling, contagion hitting the fan, strewn not just into the atmosphere like diced seabirds through an airplane propeller, but also with a prop wash through consciousness, a turbulent spiral leaving something shredded to hemorrhage midair, regardless whether in climb or fall.
Thank you, John. It's a pleasure having everyone. It's to hear all of your different voices.
Thank you, Robbie.
Okay, we have any more people who want to read, who are in the community?
What about you? You say you had one. Go for it.
And also Alan. We haven't heard from Alan today.
From what?
I was thinking Alan.
Ellen,
know
is
it's
Ellen here?
Alan, A-L.
Oh, Alan
I'm
is-
sorry, my accent makes it sound funny, but I mean, Alan Wolowitz.
Ellen, yeah. Would you read us something, Ellen?
Sure. Sure, can you hear me?
Yes.
This is a poem about my Uncle Harry. Maybe you have an Uncle Harry too. My Uncle Harry. If I insisted on being a teacher, Uncle Harry had his most meaningful advice. Listen, asshole, never turn your back on the class. And he demonstrated how by handing me the leash to his giant killer dog, Mr. Pooch, and then turned himself into a pretzel of a man in half glasses with a crazed asymmetrical look. His arm turned an impossible angle, stabbing the air with phantom chalk on a phantom board. In a day or two, I discovered even were I to master this contortion, I'd only be an annoyance to the kids I pretended to teach. A fly on Pooch's ass, and maybe, if lucky, I'd get swatted off when he shook his barbed tail and sent anything on it for a spin. Mostly my fate was to be ignored, which, looking back, seemed wisdom plenty for 8th graders to possess. Many of them were large for their age, and a few were men and women of the world who made clear they were not to be taken for fools. The Red Pony and Warner's first course again. One girl, Tanya, looked at me with some pity and said, "Man, you got to be tough with these kids. This is the damn ghetto." It was true. I hadn't been to the Bronx before, though many times I had just driven through. Thanks.
I should let you have the last word. But I will read a poem. It's called Van Gogh's Ear, and it was published in Inflectionist Review. It has an epigraph from Vincent van Gogh. Normality is a paved road. It's comfortable to walk, but no flowers grow on it. What else would he be doing besides standing in a dark field, listening to a carillon of stars vibrate in the night sky's vaulted chapel, or wavering in the darkened surface of a river? He'd stumble on the unpaved path, wishing the spirits would be silent. They'd rise in choruses out of the trees, the grass, the thick green stalks of irises and sunflowers, wheat fields after the harvest, trilling like tree frogs, an orchestra of light, impelling him to lay the paint on thick, impasto, to shout in loud blues and yellows from the canvas. The spirits rap on the small drum of his tympanic membrane. He harvested his ear to make it stop. Prophecy is a burden. Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. Thank our features. Everybody was wonderful, and I just love all of you. And I'll see you next month when we have a little different iteration of the reading. We have two readers bouncing poems back and forth to each other. And I'll see you. I don't know remember what date that is, but there'll be a post on that soon, and I'll be sending out invitations. But again, thank you to all of you, and I'll see you next time.
See you then. Thanks for hosting, Robbie. Great reading.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Thank you.